What's up, guys? So it is my 5-year anniversary of officially doing Pick the Pagan. It was August 5 years ago, actually, really, so I'm behind, that I started what is now Pick the Pagan. And October, though, marks 15 years of me being pagan. And so what are my thoughts for 15 years of where I was to where I am now? I'll talk about that a little bit. Godspeed with us. So 15 years is a long time. You see that I have gray in my beard now. The longer it gets, the more gray you can see. So it's definitely been a journey. So how did I get here? For those that don't know how I became pagan, is in 2009 of October. I was already dating someone at the time that turned out that she was a witch. There's a longer video and a longer story of this if you search, because I tell this story about every year. Anyway, it was through her that I started thinking about anything outside the mainstream, basically, because at the time I was spiritual but not religious. I grew up in a Christian family, but it wasn't just her, but reading books maybe influenced because of her. I started checking things out because I had friends in high school that were Wiccan, and I was never one to judge people. I was always wanting to be curious and ask, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? And so I remember I did start off reading Wiccan books, because whenever you're interested in paganism, that's usually the first place you go, especially if you live in the US. And so I remember one of the first books I got was Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. That was the first book I remember buying, and it made so much sense to me. And the thought that there's duality in nature, so why can't there be duality in the divine as well? So that was the beginning, the planting of seeds. Because you look, like I say all the time, you look around you and there's male and female plants that have plant or male and female attributes to these plants, to animals, to most things. Even whether if you're assigned male, female, whatever you identify as, you still have male and female in your DNA. And so things like that had me really thinking. And that was the beginning. And from there, I found a coven, and then continued being Wicca until I left the groups. I found out and learned a lot. I actually was part of some pretty well-known covens, especially one in particular. That was Willow Dragonstone was their name, and the leader was Dia Crabtree. And you can look her up. She is on YouTube. And through her, I got to meet some pretty not infamous, but respectable, very famous people. Janet Farrer, the famous, very famous, highly respected witch and high priestess and Wiccan that's been on TV and talk shows in the UK and in the US. I got to meet her. I do have a video about that on this channel of when I met Janet. That was awesome. That was probably the coolest thing ever in my time with them. So I did leave eventually because I started going to these Wiccan and Coven meetings, and I wasn't feeling it anymore. Just something, I was disconnecting. And that's what I've learned through these years, is that we usually, maybe not usually, but for everyone it's different. That where you start spiritually may not be where you are 15 years later. And if you have been doing this for 30 years and you feel like with the path you're on, it's been working for you for 30 years, then that's awesome. But sometimes you feel the need to look somewhere else because maybe what you've learned in certain paths, you've fulfilled what you felt you needed at the time, and you start growing restless. And when you start feeling that feeling, you start exploring other places as well. So yeah, I was a hardcore Wiccan when I started for years. Then I became an eclectic pagan, and then started, like I said, you look for other things as well. It was, but I always had an interest in Greek mythology. Even at the time, I did. And I happened to hear about Hecate, and through Hecate that I find Hellenic polytheism. And that was the beginning of that. And yeah, I started studying up on that. And that was about 6 or 7 years ago. And I always had questions. I got a Facebook, and no one really had answers I was looking for. There were a few people that were, well, they had answers, but dealing with Facebook groups, you know how it is. At the time when I was a no one, when no one knew me, I remember I joined certain Facebook groups, and I remember Chris Aldridge, who we know each other now. It's kind of funny, but I would ask, and he would always respond. So Chris is a good guy. And then, like I said, about a year or two later, I was thinking, there's no one on YouTube like doing videos about these questions on Hellenic polytheism. So that kind of sparked Pick the Pagan. And that's how it all began. I started doing a video on every single thing I think of that I had questions on, because I'm a very visual learner. If I'm not touching it, I like to see it. And so you can tell me all day, but I either have to do it or see someone doing it. So that was the vision behind Pick the Pagan, I guess you could say. And that was 5 years ago. Well, really 6, because I had another Pick the Pagan channel before the one that you're watching right now. But yeah, so the one that you're watching right now is really 5. But I've been toying and playing with Pick the Pagan, the idea, for years before that. At least a year or two. Yeah, and then the name Pick the Pagan, because Pick is part of my last name. And the Pagan just sounded good. I was like, Pick the Pagan, that's a name that sounds like pretty catchy, that stands out. And there you go. And this was before, when I started, there was Aleakai, there was Eagle of Zeus, and there are tour buses that are going down the road with a police escort right now. I wonder if it's someone big and famous. I don't know. Pretty cool. And so, yeah, there's Aleakai, and yeah, and there's cops behind them too. Interesting. And that was about it. It was Fel de Blythe was not around when I started. I started before Fel de Blythe, and or at least when she started doing Hellenic polytheism stuff. But the others, Aleakai, and there was Eagle of Zeus. Eagle of Zeus, who we became friends, really was influential to me at the time, which is kind of funny because they see me kind of as an influential now in some of my videos, and at the time, and I've told in this sense that I thought they were influential. So I owe it to Chris and Eagle of Zeus, is some, again, where the inspiration came from. But yeah, just every question I ever had that I wish I saw a video on, I decided, hey, why not do a video on it? And that was the birth of Pick the Pagan, and it's been a lot of fun. And through Pick the Pagan, it presented more opportunity. Ooh, that was really interesting. So like I said, I got to meet and know Chris Aldridge, a highly respected person in the community. I got to meet George Lizos, who you may or may not like, his book about Greek mysticism that just came out like this year. Through that review, I got to meet him and talk to him. So it's been a lot of fun. Certain groups I got to meet and talk to that are influential, that people know. And so yeah, Pick the Pagan took me places that I never thought I would ever get to know. You know, people that are respected in the community, got to talk to them and they know who I am, which is pretty cool for a guy that's in Winder, Georgia, that had to deal with obviously the stuff that happened recently, that just wanted to do videos on stuff I never saw online. So I am always touched that people do enjoy the videos. And like I said, that's Pick the Pagan story. But me on my 15-year journey, what I've learned is that where you start, like I was saying, may not be where you finish or end. Because like I said, the way I started hardcore Wiccan at the time, and then you go and eclectic pagan. Some people stay that Wiccan an entire life, and that's fine. That's what works for them, because that's what fulfills their spiritual needs. And so paganism can take many forms. That part has never changed in 15 years, because like I said, I was spiritual but not religious at the time when I found it. 15 years, I think it stuck pretty good. And with no signs of slowing down on that end. But I started looking into more traditional paths like Hellenic polytheism, like I said, which was the birth of Pick the Pagan. And now I'm starting to move more into my ancestral roots, so moving into more the Gaulish paganism, the Irish paganism, the Celtic paganism, the Celtic polytheism. That's more of where it's heading now. And you know when it's time to move when you feel like you're ready to. If you feel like, I don't wanna, then it's not time to move to or try something different, in my opinion. That's what I've learned in 15 years, is just go with the flow. That if you feel like it's time to change something up, and then you change it up and it's feeling right, that was the right move. And that's the lesson I've learned in 15 years. For those that are watching that haven't been pagan 15 years, the ones that haven't been alive 15 years possibly, they're just now turning 15 next year, what have you, makes you feel old when you think of it that way. That's what I've learned, is that you go with the flow and be respectful to your path. That when you do decide, if you do decide to move on to something else, then you respect it. Such as, I don't come out teaching things about anything Celtic outside of showing you altars and things I'm doing at the time, because I am fresh and new. I'm learning myself. I don't dare try to teach on things I don't know really much myself about. So that's why videos have slowed down. When it comes to Hellenic polytheism, I don't know what else there is to say outside of videos on a holiday or something, but you guys have seen all of those from me and others as well. So yeah, 15 years, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. Have a lot of fun. It's windy and I'm coughing now. But yeah, I guess it's time for me to quiet down, is what nature is trying to say. But yeah, 15 years. And that's my lesson I give to you, is go with the flow spiritually. That if you feel like it's time to move and try something different, that's when it's time to move and try something different. In whatever realm it is. Like I said, for me it is still polytheism and paganism, because that is awesome. I absolutely love that. In the duality of the God, goddess, gods, deities, how you see it, ever since 15 years ago when that became a revelation to me, that hasn't changed. So yeah, so starting on new journeys and getting excited, and maybe in the future I may do more videos on who knows what, you never know. Anyway guys, just a video to celebrate 15 years and 5. Anyway guys, I'll talk to you later.
Oh, no.